There is an exodus of billionaires and super rich individuals leaving Norway. In fact, a number of billionaires and super millionaires, I guess as you would call them, who have left in just the last year is 30, including the richest man in the country. This is, for some context, greater than the 13 previous years combined. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is going on here and the trend that I think is taking place in the world in general and how it affects you and where you want to go, which is probably not Norway. So what went on here? Well, the first thing that has happened is they have gone and raised the wealth tax. They brought in a wealth tax between municipal and federal, or state and federal, of 1.1%. And the reality here is, what's the consequence? Well, the thing when you have a wealth tax, and the OECD themselves say wealth tax is a terrible idea. I know the US has talked about possibly introducing it. You've had some talk in terms of California possibly introducing it. It's a terrible idea. It's been tried numerous times, including France, and it always ends disastrously because exactly what is happening here happens. They come out and you are forced to pay tax on assets that you have not realized the gains off of. So the one very wealthy individual made a comment. He said, listen, in order to pay the tax, which he estimated would be whatever number of is in their currency, so they're fairly high tax per year, he would need to pay out a dividend that was much higher because he has to pay tax on that dividend in order to pay this. And so he kind of gets taxed twice. What this means is withdrawing a lot of working capital from the company that he wouldn't normally withdraw. Now, I want to point something out here that's really important because I'll sometimes hear people say, oh, if we lower corporate taxes, that will mean that, companies will hire more. This turns out not to be true, right? So if we're going to be fair and honest, we're going to have intellectual honesty about a position of, saying a particular type of tax is bad or good or something like that, we should be honest about what's going on. So certainly it is not true that you have this trickle down in economics where if you cut corporate taxes, companies hire more. In fact, often they end up letting people go, not the opposite. So it is definitely not true, but let's recognize why, right? The reason why that happens is because if you're taxed on income and hiring people is an expense, you have an unlimited ability to hire new people regardless of the tax rate because of the fact that it's a write-off, right? No big deal. However, when you're talking about a wealth tax, it's quite different. It actually does rob the ability to hire people because if you're the owner of a company and the value of that company goes up, now you're supposed to pay tax on that. Well, where are you going to get the money to pay? You can't get the money. So you either need to sell stock, which means giving up shares. And frankly, in the case of private companies, you often can't sell shares or it's not really a great idea. So hence you have to pay out a dividend from the company. Well, that money is money that could have been reinvested into the growth of the company, into hiring people, etc. And as he's pointing out here, you would pay tax on the dividends, plus you would pay the wealth tax, and so you get hit double. So in order to pay out, $6 million, you have to pay out, or to pay a tax of $6 million on the wealth tax, you have to pay out $10 million. So you get hit double. So what we are seeing is a significant move. Now, interestingly, you might ask, where are these people moving? And certainly I'm sitting here in UAE, and UAE is a popular place for a lot of people moving here, but actually, a bunch of these very wealthy people are moving to Switzerland, to Lucerne, to Lugano, etc. And they made the comments that this is not the cheapest place, this is not the lowest tax place, but it gives me a great quality of life. It gives me great access to the center of Europe. And so I like that. I like the place. I enjoy being able to go to Lake Como and Milan and places like this. But I'm in an environment where it is quite reasonable. And you're seeing this a lot. You're seeing also people fleeing Germany coming to Switzerland. As well, of course, as other parts of the world. And so I think what we're going to find in general is there is probably much more of this. There was a fairly prominent public individual made the comment the other day on a podcast that I follow that he figured the US will see 70% tax rates. And people were like, what? Are you kidding me? And he's like, well, how are you going to cover the gap otherwise? There's a gap that needs to be covered, and where's that going to come from? What's that the consequence going to be? Well, you're going to have people who are going to migrate. And the thing that has changed in history from today to, versus years ago, people didn't have an easy ability to relocate in these situations. Now they do. That's point number one. Point number two is there didn't always used to be competitive lifestyle alternatives. If you were to go back and consider, would I ever move from, Manhattan to Malaysia in the 70s? Well, in the 70s, Malaysia was terrible. It really didn't have the quality of life to compare at all. So there was a meaningful loss. Today, Kuala Lumpur, in many regards, is better than a lot of American cities. Maybe, depending on your tastes, a very high percentage of, maybe the majority of them. And so when you have better alternatives combined with it is easy for you to relocate because your income is not based on where the location is, you're going to have a massive change. And so if you're interested in figuring out where you should relocate, where to set up your business, etc., please reach out to us. You can book a call with me, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer, link in the description below. Happy to help you. And we can consider taking a look at where that will go. I expect that things will be quite bad for Scandinavia over the next, 50 years or something. And the reason is, lifestyle-wise, you have poor weather, right? So that's not a reason that people want to stay there. And on the flip side, the taxes are extremely high. Now, if you're lower or middle class, then yeah, what you give compared to what you get might have something commensurate. One of the ministers who was involved in this process said, we think that it's very fair, we give good health care, we give good education, and it's free. It's true. Norway, I think there's a lot to admire about Norwegian society and how they have egalitarianism baked in and things like this. But you have to understand, if you're somebody who is very wealthy, somebody who's a billionaire, somebody who's a centimillionaire, somebody who's even a decamillionaire, the amount that you're paying is far, far, far disproportionate to what it is that you're getting in return from the state. And within some proportionality, people will tolerate it. At a certain point, it becomes unbearable, and it especially is unbearable when it's wealth tax and it's not based on what you've realized as gains. So I think it will be a massively failed experiment. It's going to be a terrible thing for Norway. I don't know that these people will ever move back to Norway, and they will probably learn their lesson over the course of some period of time, but the government there is not in the right direction in this regard. And I suspect more countries are going to see more of this over the next little while. Let me know what you guys think. Put it in the comments below. Hit the subscribe button, and I will see you on the next video.